All right, we're good. Welcome back to another episode. Today I'm joined with special guest Jay Yang. How are you doing, my man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, man.
No worries, man. No worries. Do you want to just tell the audience like your journey, like where did you start from and how you get to where you are now?
Yeah. So my journey started during COVID. At that time I was playing video games for like hours at a time. And one day I was like, I probably should do something a little bit more productive with my life. So I Googled how to make money online. Um, and one of the like options was start a YouTube channel. And my friend had his own YouTube channel. I think it was um, like little figurines and stuff. But I was like, what can I do? Um, like something that I would be able to do. And so I started a music promotion YouTube channel where I would promote like underground, underrated artists' songs on YouTube to drive traffic to their songs. And I did that for like the first summer of COVID, but I got like no traffic. I got like nothing. Um, but then I posted this motivational song right at about the end of summer, so going into school year, and it blew up. Got a million plus views, shot up my channel. It was awesome, and so then I was scrolling through the comments, and then there was a ton of comments, and a lot of these comments were like, this song helped me get out of bed this morning, and I was like, what? Or I listen to this song when I work out, or I lost 30 pounds when I was listening to this song. I was like, what? And so I kind of realized that's kind of when I realized two things. One was there's a lot of people out there who need, inspiration, who would use some encouragement. And two, I could be that person that inspires them. And that was huge. So I started my Instagram page, hence the name Jang Inspires. And I started posting inspirational quotes, a lot of self-help, personal growth stuff. And it slowly kind of evolved from there. I started getting into, reading self-help books, got into fitness, learned about marketing, found my way to Twitter. That's when I learned about all this like writing, copywriting stuff, storytelling, and it kind of, just snowballed to where we are here.
Damn, son, you've tried a lot. You've tried a lot for your age, bro. Like, take me back to this music thing then. So why didn't you carry that on? Because it sounds like you had a good thing going. Like, what made you switch?
Yeah. So like while I may have had, some external success with like that one song, I knew it wasn't going to be a long-term project for me because, I like music, but, I'm not super passionate about music. And so I knew that because it wasn't something that really aligned with, what I was interested in, what I was curious about, I knew I should probably pivot to a different direction. And um, at that time, I was getting into personal growth and personal development. So I was like, what, let me just document my journey of, reading these books, working out and stuff on Instagram. So that's kind of how it started.
That's super interesting, man. And when you did post, because for me personally, when I started posting, I used to have like really just like crazy imposter syndrome. Like, what are people going to think of me? Like, what's this post going to be like? Oh, I've got friends. Like, for example, I was really scared to post on Instagram and YouTube because I was like, oh, what if friends discover me? But Twitter for
Mm,
me was good because I didn't know anyone on Twitter. I didn't have any friends on Twitter, so I was like, okay, blank slate, and it's
yeah.
fine. Like for you, how did you like? Did you even have these sort of imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs when you first started? Or was it just like action?
That's a good question. When I started my Instagram account, I actually didn't have like Instagram like as a consumer. So becoming a creator on Instagram was my first experience with the platform, like in general. So I didn't really have like any friends on the platform that I was worried about. And I also knew like the whole thing of like, you know, you want to be the person in the arena, right? Like there's a quote like "boos don't block dunks," and so no matter even if they make fun of me or if they um, say mean comments, like I'm the one person in the arena doing the work. So that's kind of my mindset about it.
Interesting. And how did you get that mindset? Was that something you've always sort of had, like going into things, going to projects?
It's a good question. Um, yeah, I'd say I've never really worried too much about what others say, um, and yeah.
Interesting, man. Because yeah, I'm only asking that question because I think I was like the complete opposite, and I think it's very common to be the complete opposite. And so just trying to pick your brain in terms of like what your thought process behind that was, because it's crazy to me how like a lot of people just don't press the send button just because they have these like barriers, because the only thing holding you back is the mindset that you have. And it sounds to me like you already developed like a level of mindset which allowed you to post early, and that's probably why you're seeing like the success you are at the age you are as well, because you've had that um ability to just take action, which I don't really see that many people have. Like when I first started seeing your content, there's a few other accounts like yours as well, like around your age. And I'm like, how are these kids literally posting so much and like getting good traction? Like, do they not have any limiting beliefs around it? So actually, this is a question I just thought up of actually. Do you have any limiting beliefs? Like, and if you do, like, what would you say are the sort of biggest blockers for you right now?
Yeah. Well, to answer your previous question, I guess it's more of like an ignorance thing. Like I didn't
Mm,
know any better. So, um, but I guess limiting beliefs now, there's always that like imposter syndrome of, why should people listen to me, right? Why should anyone listen to a 17-year-old kid? And and my answer to that is like I'm not trying to be the teacher. Like I'm not trying to be the person standing up and lecturing to people. I view myself as that smart kid in the back of the room who's taking vigorous notes and then just sharing them with the rest of the class. And the saying, be the guide, not the guru. Um, I'm not trying to, you know, teach people how to live the good life or, how to quit your 9 to 5. It's just like, hey, I'm on a journey, and this is how I'm doing it. If it helps you, sure, come along with me. If it doesn't, no worries, no sweat.
that's awesome, man. Talk to me about this goal you have then to hit 100K before you graduate high school. Why did you have that goal?
Yeah. So I started that goal actually only a few weeks ago, and it's because to me that goal symbolizes not just the revenue, but also a sign that the default path doesn't have to be the only path, right? It's proving to both myself and my parents that you know entrepreneurship is a viable option, and not just that, it's a sustainable option. And so 100K is my goal, not just to make money, but also to explore this creative entrepreneurship path.
That's super interesting, man. Because obviously we've both got Asian. I mean, I think you've got Asian parents as well. I'm curious to know like what do they think about what you're doing, as well as them. Like, what do your friends think? Because it's like you say, it's kind of off the beaten path, and it's like not very common that people get into this whole space, start building like massive brands and start monetizing it and building these businesses on top of it. So like, tell me about like that whole journey of, I don't know, like how your parents find it, what your friends like think of it, things like that.
Yeah, my parents are actually pretty cool with it. I'm super lucky to have really supportive parents, um, but they're practical just like I am. Like it wouldn't make sense for me to drop out of college or quit the path that I'm already on for something that is obviously more risky. So it's also to prove to them and to myself that it's a viable option. And as far as my friends, like also really supportive. Like couldn't ask for better parents, couldn't ask for better friends. Um, yeah, I've never had too many issues with like people not supporting me.
It's wholesome, man. Like, so you planning to go to university then? Are you planning to do that whole arc?
Yeah, so I mean, the plan right now is to go to college. It
Mm,
makes the most sense for where I'm at. I'm not doing horrible in school, and I also think there are some very valuable things you can learn in college. So yeah, that's the plan for now.
like what? What
Like
valuable
lessons you
things?
can learn from college.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a good question. To me, it's also the network, but also like committing yourself to studying a difficult discipline. Right? There are a lot
Mm,
of things I just don't know about life in general. I don't know how to, you know, structure deals and learn about negotiation and all that stuff. And so I think college is a great way to study that skill, but then also, build this online business part time, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other right now. And so the the idea is like keeping my options open, right? I don't have to commit full time to this thing yet. And so I can go to college and I can build my online business at the same time. And maybe at the end of college, after 4 years, my business is doing phenomenal. And I can confidently say, hey, you know what? I'm making 50K per month with this online business. I probably should do this instead of getting a job. So,
mate, money Twitter's gonna hate you for saying that. Going to college, bro. Yeah. So I just wanted to counter that point you said about like learning about the skills that you can't get right now. And so I went to college, studied economics, and a lot of what college is theory. Like, what are you trying to study at college, by the way?
it'll probably be either finance or marketing or something like that.
Okay. So yeah,
but definitely business.
Kind of similar-ish. A lot of it's going to be theory, man. And what I found about college was that it's not so much about what you learn. It's more so like you learn to kind of just game the system. It's like if you can game the system and get good grades, I'm sure you're experiencing this with high school as well. It's like you can just like hack grades, which obviously isn't a good way to go about it. But it sounds like you're quite switched on in terms of like wanting to go to college to actually learn. But my question to you then is, you wanted to learn deals and negotiations and things like that. Like, why have you been able to do that in your own sort of personal brand? And if not, have you been trying to get those experiences? Because I know for me personally, I've been able to build on those skills through my personal brand and through my agency. So where I haven't actually done that in university or in my corporate job. So I'm curious to know, like, what kind of skill sets have you been able to build with your personal brand, and do you think you can build the ones that you mentioned?
Yeah, this online game's amazing in the sense that you learn as much as you want to. And so because of like YouTube and all this stuff, I've learned a ton of different skills that I call them foundational skills that I believe will set me up for success no matter which way I pivot, right? So things like learning how to write persuasively, learning how to think critically, learning how to write a sales page, learning how to promote your own ideas. And so I have learned a lot in this online game, but there are definitely different aspects of life that I think a lot of people on money Twitter kind of neglect or forget. Like if you think about it, like people like Sahil Bloom and Justin Welsh, they started with a corporate background. And I think it's those skills that they learned doing those jobs that's allowed them to build successful businesses. And so that's kind of why I think college is the right step for me, because while I have learned an immense amount online, I still think there's a lot more I can learn going to college. And not saying that I have to outsource my learning to some institution, but I think college is a great opportunity for me, at least, to foster more learning.
That's super interesting that you mentioned that. I'm curious to know, like, what kind of skills, not only the sort of professionalism from working in a corporate job, but what kind of skills do you think money Twitter lacks? Because this is a really interesting area, because when I first joined, or first kind of like was exposed to this area, I was like, this is it. This is like where everyone is. Everyone's super smart. Everyone's like killing it at a young age. But then I'm starting to realize, man, one thing I've noticed is that money Twitter's very short-term minded. A lot of people play like very short-term games. And what I mean by that is just like hustling in the DMs, hard pitching, wherever. It's like, as opposed to building relationships who then get business opportunities, and actually having that professionalism to be like, yo, I actually just want to get to know someone, as opposed to, oh, I'm going to try and pitch them right now, or when's the best time to, like, what's the best offer to, it's not so much like the tactics, it's more so like the fundamentals, I feel, that it lacks. And I think it goes back to your point in saying, like, there's a lot of young guys on this side of Twitter, and so they might not have been exposed to that life that I think you think that you can get in college, which I completely agree with now. I think I'm starting to see that side. But what are your thoughts in terms of like the kind of skill sets or the dimensions that money Twitter lacks?
Yeah, I definitely agree with your point. It's more short-term mindset. Um, Look, this money Twitter space, this creator economy is still relatively new, and it's fresh. We haven't really seen anyone like go on and live the rest of their lives like doing this as their career. Um, Sorry, what was your question again?
So my question
Lost
is,
my train of thought.
what skills and dimensions does money Twitter lack that you feel like you can get in a corporate job, for example, or a university or a college education?
Yeah, my thing with Twitter is like it's not just about building an audience or building a ghostwriting agency. It's also about building the foundational skills of other businesses. Because say Twitter goes down, then that's your whole business. And you could argue that you just pivot to another platform, but unless you build the actual skills necessary, then it's not as easy as just pivoting platforms, right? Then you have to start over from scratch, and now you have probably a 6 month period where you have to learn this new platform. You have to develop your connections again. Um, and so yeah, definitely, I think it's more short term mindset. And I know gonna get a lot of hate for saying that, but I think
Cool, bro.
no, I think at least for me personally, I think college is the right step. Not It's not for everyone, um, but for me, that's I think
Dude, you're
the right
getting
thing.
cancelled on money Twitter, bro. When I when I post this, that's funny. That's funny. Switching gears, what's your unfair advantages?
It's a good question. I'd say one of my unfair advantages is I genuinely get energy from thinking and writing. And that's a long-term game that I think I could do for the rest of my life. And I know a lot of people write on Twitter, but they write for the money or they write for the clients. I genuinely think I could read, think, write, learn, and teach others like sustainably, even if I don't make a ton of money. It's an infinite game that I believe I could play. Um, I get home from school and I'm excited to sit down in the computer and write. It's something um, that because I'm naturally more interested in, because it's something that gives me a lot of energy. I think that's an advantage over a lot of people who may be only writing to get the clients and then that's it. You know what I mean?
That's super interesting. Writing to get clients. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I also love writing, but the only caveat is that I'm dyslexic, so it takes me longer to write than normal people, and that's why I've found it challenging. But sometimes when I do write and when you get into that level of flow, it's just so nice because then you can just like finish the work and you feel like energized. And I know what you mean when you say energized after you've completed a really cool piece of writing. And have you ever gotten those pieces of writing where you just reread like 10 times? 'Cause you're like, that's fire, bro. That's fire. You ever get that?
Right? Yeah.
Just constantly rereading it. But yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. A question to you then. So if you like writing so much, why don't you choose like business models where you write for others? For example, ghostwriting, copywriting, because the cash flow is a lot better.
Yeah.
So why
It's a
why
great
would you not
question.
go? Why would you not go for those models?
Yeah. I think it's what we were talking about earlier. It's more of a long-term play where, you might make a lot of cash in the short term with your ghostwriting agency. But for me, if I'm trying to build a brand where I can teach others and inspire others, then building my own brand, writing about what interests me, um, aligns more. Because I've done ghostwriting before, and um, it just wasn't enjoyable. I wasn't writing about the topics that I enjoyed. I found myself, you know, writing for virality versus writing for quality, and writing on Twitter is much different than writing a long form newsletter. Um, and so when writing for myself allows me to practice the different types of writing. Yeah, writing on Twitter, but also writing for the newsletter and um, writing in private. And so it allows me to give me more time to learn the skills, build useful products, whether free or paid, and sustainably build my brand for the people that I look up to. Right, ghostwriting, at least on Twitter, is still relatively new. So the people I look up to haven't been ghostwriters. So that's kind of why I haven't pivoted to ghostwriting. Doesn't seem like a a long-term play I would enjoy.
Who do you look up to?
Yeah, I look up to a lot of the people with strong personal brands. Right now, Ollie Richards, he built Story Learning, the digital education business. I look up to Jack Butcher, who has his own digital course business, and people like Derek Sievers, and um, who've built their businesses, but then also realized that, and also pursue their passions through writing.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I feel like you have to have like 3 to 5 people you really look up to, because there's too many differing opinions on Twitter teaching you, oh, you have to do it like this, or you have to do it like that. Like there's not a one size fits all. It's more just like what works for them might work for you, but it's like up to you to find out what works for you. And that's kind of something I've been like reflecting on quite a lot, because everyone, like I'm sure you're aware, like everyone on Twitter talks with complete conviction on the timeline, and so you're like, oh, if I'm not doing this, then I'm missing out. How do you cut out the noise?
Yeah, so on Twitter, people write concisely and with polarizing views because that's how you get attention. It's all about running each person's piece of advice through your own context, right? You never want to copy without context. And when you do that, when you have that filter, I think that's when you can filter out all the noise, because I think there's a Naval quote, like, if you listen to enough advice, it all cancels out to zero. And so it's finding, 3 to 5 people that whose message you align with, whose lifestyle, whose business you align with, and then running through their advice through your context.
Interesting. I love that like filter you put on. What are your favorite Naval quotes on that line?
That's a good question. I think my number one right now is learn to build, learn to sell. If you can do both, you'll be unstoppable.
And why does he
And
say that?
that kind of encapsulates um, the Storypreneur brand, is learning how to sell your ideas, learning how to tell stories, learning how to write persuasively, but then also learning how to build useful products, how to um, structure deals. And when you can do both, right, there's that term, the builder and the seller. When you can do both, you'll be like Elon Musk, right? He can build, he knows the engineering behind Tesla cars and rocket ships, but he also knows how to speak and how to sell his ideas.
Interesting. That's probably one of my favorite ones as well. When I first heard that quote, I thought building meant like being like a proficient coder, and I was like, I can't do this, man. But then like discovering this whole online space and obviously seeing what you're doing, seeing what other people like you're doing, you don't have to code. You can pretty much just use all these no code tools and just put it on Gumroad, and it's pretty much a build, like a product. So it's just like that. I think that's just really cool, because it's becoming a lot more accessible and at a very, very fast rate as well. Um, but yeah, so I guess along the lines of like building, walk me through the journey of your first 5 fig digital product launch, because that was pretty interesting. Because I think you were like building in public, weren't you? So what was that like?
Yeah, so let's see how it started. Yeah, so I was doing a bunch of client calls with different people I was talking to, and I would occasionally run them through my content system. And every single time they were like blown away. I got a ton of amazing feedback. And so that kind of sparked the idea, oh, maybe I should turn this into a product. So first step I did was validate the idea. I sent a poll in my newsletter. Hey, is this something that will interest you? And I said, if I get, 15 people to say that interests them, then I'll build it. And I got like 26 or something. I don't remember the exact number. So I was like, all right, once I validated this idea, I'm gonna start building the MVP. So I started templatizing my content system, making it more universal for other people. And then I sent it to my inner circle for round one feedback, right? I collected testimonials, got feedback, came back, iterated on the product. And I started talking about it, like hinting at the product in tweets and threads. And then I did a launch day. promoted it through my newsletter and through Twitter. What I did on launch day was I did tiered discount pricing. And I found it from Steph Smith. She did this with her ebook, where the first 10 people get a 30% discount. Next 10 people get 20% discount. Next 10, 10%, and so on until it's full price. And so that's kind of how I did it.
That's interesting. What was the hardest part of doing that? Like, it sounds pretty smooth to me. Like, was there any like major bottlenecks or struggles or just mental blockages that you had to sort of overcome to get to that point?
Yeah, the one thing that I was concerned with was, like selling out to my audience, like trying to sell to them too soon. So I actually had 5 promotion emails that I was like written and already ready to send them, but I only sent out like 3 because I was worried that I was selling too hard. And I regret that because selling doesn't actually hurt your brand, but selling a crappy product does. And so because I should have been confident that I knew my product has already helped many people, got amazing feedback. It's helped me grow my own brand. So I should have, sent all 5 because I knew it would help other people.
Interesting. Yeah, it's always just that. So one reframe. So I know we've both got mutual connection, Connor Woodmere. I think, right? You know Connor?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's given me a really good reframe. It's like what you're selling is literally going to change their life. So it's like it is your duty to give it to them. And that reframe was crazy because it's like, as opposed to being like, oh, I'm just selling a product, it's like you're selling them a solution that they need. They really need this to like accelerate their growth or their whatever it is, their business, whatever it is. And so that reframe there really helped me because I used to think like, why am I selling my time to people, like for example coaching, consulting calls, things like that. Like it's just a call. I'm happy to just jump on a call with people, but you're giving them a service that's valuable. I think value is very hard to be tangible. It's very hard to specifically define, and it's hard to put a value on. Put a monetary value on the value that you provide. So I think that's where the difficulty lies. And so charging different prices or even charging a tool is something that a lot of people struggle with. But something else that you mentioned along the lines of your product launch was that you said that one thing that you wish you started before, or wish you knew before you started, was to learn how to manage your emotions. Because you said that 90% of your mistakes came from reacting to a certain event. Now, what was that event, if you're happy to share? And walk me through that sort of process and how you sort of overcame that bottleneck.
I don't actually remember saying that. Yeah. I think one of the events that, so I've always been more reactionary, right? I see something and I want to act on it immediately. It's this impatience, this drive to just get it done immediately. And so I think for me, it's zooming out a little bit, seeing that this product launch, even though I want to get it done and I want to help people as fast as possible, it's zooming out to the longer perspective and building out more of a back end. So I think I reacted to people wanting this product and I was build. I think I built it out in like maybe 1 or 2 weeks. I think playing a longer game of developing the product further, developing back end stuff to help customers, some email sequences, some more bonuses would have been a better play. So that's.
And so for your next product launch, like what are the changes or the iterations you're planning to make for it?
Yeah, for me, so my next product is probably not going to be in a little bit. What I'm planning on doing is I'm doing these one-on-one client calls, and what I'm doing is I'm creating a database of pains and goals. And actually, this was advice from Connor as well, is identifying where your audience is now, point A, and where they want to go, point B. And so keeping this database of what pains they're experiencing and what their dreams and desires are will allow me to write better sales pages, create more aligned content, and build a better product. And then what I'm planning on doing is launching a private, like, high ticket group coaching program. And this is where I'll run through all my systems and get live feedback, and really validate my systems and say it didn't just work for me, and it didn't just get great feedback, but it also worked for my students. And then planning on packaging all my systems, all my templates, worksheets, all my exercises, and turning that into a digital course.
Interesting. That's super interesting. So you're doing client calls? Is that already? So that's like one tier of your offer, right? So you do client calls and you do product launches every now and again. Like, is that your sort of suite of offers that you currently have?
Right. Yeah. So if people can't afford the one-on-one consulting, point them down to my digital product. And if they want something more personalized, then I point them up to my one-on-one coaching.
Interesting. And what if they want something even more personalized?
And that's why I'm spinning up the coaching program.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Are there any other business models that you really want to experiment with? Because I guess the kind of business models that you're talking about right now, they kind of layer up on each other. It's like you kind of have the one-to-ones to get the product information, to get the group coaching information, to then get the product. So it's like kind of iterating each other. But are there any sort of business models that you would love to like just get into that you aren't already doing, or you haven't done in the past, that are kind of unrelated to this whole space?
No, actually, the business model that I'm actually trying to build, it's going to take longer than if I just started like a ghostwriting agency. It's more of like a 3 to 5 year plan. But once I have that, flagship digital course that's been validated, I have student results, student testimonials, and then a flagship course, then it's about building a product ecosystem, right? This next flagship digital course is just the beginning. Once you have that flagship course that sells well, just like Justin Welch has his courses, then you can start building a product ecosystem. So that course is just level 1. Then you build level 2 and level 3 and level 4. And that kind of creates a journey for people to follow. And then from there, you have different back-end offers, like a continuity offer, like a community, or different one-off standalone courses, or even your high-ticket personalized coaching. But just like Harry Potter has a world for you to fall into, right? You read one book, you read book 2, read book 3. The next thing you know, you're buying a wand and you have a Harry Potter blanket. And then the next thing you know, you're buying the Harry Potter video game. And then you're at Harry Potter Land or whatever. You're trying to build that. And that's why I look up to Ollie Richards, because that's the business model he ran with story learning. And that's a business model that I think is more sustainable, and one that will transcend just Twitter or just, Instagram. And so that's what I'm looking at, 3 to 5 year plan.
Interesting, man. I really respect how you have that level of patience when obviously you're on Twitter as well, and you see all these guys like flexing their results, like 10K, 20K, 30K a month, doing like ghostwriting, lead gen, all this kind of stuff, right? Where did you get this level of patience to play, like you say, like a long game, having a 3 to 5 year plan and not focusing so much on the short-term money? And like just having that patience to say, well, having that ability to say, no, I'm going to keep working on this because I know it will succeed. Even if I'm not making the money now, I'm willing to wait. Like, where did that come from?
Well, it's because it's never really been about the money, right? I started this journey because I wanted to inspire people. I wanted to have a positive impact on people. Only recently have I started learning about, building an online business and making money with your writing. And so the goal has always been to improve myself in public and inspire people along the way. And so if that's the goal, then, making money, building products, that's a benefit. And so if improving myself in public and sharing what I learn, if that's an infinite game that I can play for the rest of my life, that's why I zoom out. Because, it's cool to make, 5K here, make a 10K month there, but long term, it's much more fulfilling and much more impactful to have an education business, in my opinion.
Interesting. The way I see it, so just give you like to give the audience like a sort of like a different angle, is that ghostwriting is a vehicle to then transition to whatever you want. So you build up the capital, you build up fat stacks to be able to be like, oh, I want to build an education business, and let me just make it 10 times quicker by chucking a ton of money in it and just growing it fast. And maybe let me just chuck a ton of money into my personal brand to grow it fast. Let me chuck in some money into growing a YouTube account and chuck it and grow it fast. And so for me, it's like a vehicle to build a moat. And that moat is the personal brand, the education business, the potential SaaS business, right? And not only that, but ghostwriting for me isn't even primarily about the money. It's about the connections. You ghostwriting is like a key to unlock the doors that you could never open, or you would never be able to open if you didn't have some sort of value to provide these like 7, 8 figure entrepreneurs, or these big guys, right? Or big women, big men and women, well-known men and women. That to me is where the value really is. And I'm curious to know, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's totally viable. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's a really smart option to, you know, build up the cash reserves and then go all in on your personal brand. To me, it's about doing things that give me energy. I'm balancing school, I have sports. Like, I don't really need to create a ghostwriting agency at this point. And it's a lot more fun to build my own personal brand, to build my own personal empire, to be that person that a lot of ghostwriters will be reaching out to in the future. So that's kind of my take.
I love that, man. I love that. What's the biggest area of self-improvement that you're working on right now?
Right now, probably self-awareness. It's hopping on these podcasts and talking with someone with a different perspective and learning about, what do I actually have an opinion on this? And to have an opinion, it means you have to think about it and really reflect on that. And also realizing that I don't have all the answers, right? I'm just a 17-year-old kid, and I may have a path that I think I'm on, but hey, maybe this conversation changed my life and I completely changed directions. So it's learning about myself and having the self-awareness to know that I am doing great things, but I can always improve. I can always learn from someone else, and I can always change directions. So that's what I'm
Interesting.
working on.
What are the kind of like daily/weekly activities you're doing to build up self-awareness? Because I know you say like jumping on podcasts, jumping on calls, but is there anything else that you're doing right now?
Reading and writing, right? Reading broadens your perspective of the world. You get to learn from people from the past. And writing is clarifying your thinking. And this is kind of why I don't do ghostwriting, is then I can write about where my mind goes, right? Anything smart I've said has first come because I've written it down, and I've put in deep thought and slow thought into developing that idea. And so if you ask me a question and I'm struggling with the answer, it's simply because I haven't thought about that enough, right? I haven't written about it. And so when I write my newsletters, I call them deep dives, because what I'm doing is I'm not just writing to express, I'm writing to explore. What do I actually think about this? How do I actually solve this problem? And so that writing facilitates that personal development. Writing online is personal development in disguise.
Dude, do you think that your writing has helped you become more articulate when you talk? Because I'm hearing you talk right now, and you don't really use much filler words, and you don't really have a struggle to use the right words. Like, I feel like you can pick what words and phrases to use. Like, where do you think that ability to articulate your ideas or your thoughts verbally come from?
Comes from writing. When you write it out, whether by hand or by typing, and you put that deep, slow thought into it, and it becomes more ingrained into your brain, and that way I can articulate it. So for all these podcast listeners, if you've been listening to this podcast, all the questions that Fernando has asked me that I've struggled with, it's because I haven't thought about those questions. And the questions that he has asked that I've had a well thought out and well articulated answer, it's because I've thought about it.
I
I've
love
written
that,
about it.
mate. I love that, man. I love that. One thing that's really helped me become self-aware is journaling, and the specific exercise I use for journaling is obviously like has to be pen and paper. Have a nice little leather notebook, and what I do is write like the problem statement, like the question that I'm trying to work through. I actually learned this from Andrew Kirby. I don't know if you know who he is on YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, he has a sort of prompt which is like just write out the problem and then just start writing. Just start writing about it. You start exploring different angles of that problem. And as you're writing, you start to crystallize the problem itself. And so your brain can start to rationalize solutions. And so the really cool part of this is that as you're writing, the more you write, you just eventually come to a solution every single time. And that's what's blown my mind. And also, you're able to connect your different ways of thinking in that passage to your childhood, or my how I am able to do that to my childhood. And I'm not able to be like, oh, so I'm thinking like this because this is how I was as a child, or I'm thinking like this because this is what my environment was like, which has caused me to act like this. And to be able to continuously connect those dots has really allowed me to be more self-aware in any given situation, because it's just another one of those. Like every situation that I put myself in now, that's like novel, right? And how I deal with it, it's pretty much like for like if I don't consciously think about it, I'm going to treat it like how I've always treated it since I was young. And so that level of self-awareness has really allowed me to be conscious and try to see and observe how I am acting, how am I thinking, how am I feeling in specific situations.
Yeah. I do a similar exercise where I write down like this one big question right before I go to bed, and that's the last thing I think about. And so my brain is subconsciously working on that problem as I sleep. When I wake up, may have an answer, write it down, get to work. So yeah, writing definitely facilitates, and this is why I get when people say like write your way to freedom and get paid with your words, but writing is so much more than just a vehicle to get paid. Writing is personal development. Writing is clarifying your thoughts. Writing is formulating an opinion, like an actual opinion on something. So yeah.
Yeah, man, I love that. I remember when I first heard it, it was like Jordan Peterson was something about writing every single day like refines your thinking. It makes you like a dangerous person because you're able to communicate so articulately, to the point that, because communication is basically just how we connect with the external world, and being able to articulate that really well is a dangerous skill to have, right? It's like being able to change the way people think or change the actions people take, how they make decisions. So I completely agree with that, man. Like looking from the outside, writing just looks like another skill. It looks like something you learn at school you don't really pay attention to. But the more you write, the more you think. The more you think, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you reflect, and it's just like a never-ending cycle of personal development. So I really like what you said about that. Are there any other areas in personal development, or just anything that's like a big focus for you right now? Just like in life, in your business, at school, like what you not spending most of your allocating most of your mental bandwidth to?
I like to call it the 3 Bs: brain, business, and body. So I'm reading every day, I'm writing every day, and I'm lifting, I'm working out every day. And those are the 3 things that kind of consume my mind most of the day. So
Question: how have you been able to cut out like degenerate activities or like instant gratification activities? Because it sounds like you've got your habits pretty dialed down. And I imagine, I mean, like I'm just thinking about when I was 17, like I definitely struggled cutting out the noise, not in terms of like online, in terms of like the environment around me, like at school or things like that. I really struggled to just do the healthy habits, do the good things I know I should be doing because of the external environment, which I thought was beneficial for me at that time. Like, how do you make sure that your habits and your daily routines, if you will, are dialed in and free from distractions?
There are two approaches I think you can take when trying to break bad habits and build good habits. You can take the, hack your way to do good habits. You could try all these exercises. But I think the way that is more sustainable is to have a vision for your future life, have a mission to put yourself on, right? You have to have something bigger to pull you towards versus the distractions pulling you, right? Distractions are always pulling you. But if you have something, if you're striving towards something, that pull is stronger than all these other distractions. So you can try, the 2-minute rule and starting small, or you can really write down your vision and articulate what do you want your ideal life to look like? What does the good life look like for you? And when you can articulate that, when you can clearly write that down, that I think is a stronger motivator than, trying to stay disciplined.
I honestly love that answer, man. I've definitely noticed that in my own life. Like, because I've now trying to build my personal brand, build the agency, that is my vision because I see that ticket to the life that I want. And for the first time in my life, I can confidently say that I literally have zero vices, like nothing, no, no bad habits, which is honestly crazy to think because I've always had something going on, like something just in the back of my mind, even though I knew that this is what I wanted. It's only when you start to see the progress and actually see some small wins and you see the actual vision being like manifested in reality. I think that for me was when I was like, oh shit, this actually could be something, like this could actually change my life. And so I have no time for example, alcohol was a massive one for me. Like I used to drink quite a lot, and obviously because of the college setting, all that kind of stuff. um as soon as I started to see progress in this, stopped, zero temptation, and I just like see it, I'm just like nothing. And it's crazy to me. It honestly is crazy. Like it's actually like purpose and vision, I genuinely think is the solution to a lot of the bad habits of society. Not these just like quick, like self-improvement tactics, like 5 ways to do all this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like one thing I want to dive deeper into, because you brought it up, is like the vision. Like how does someone create a vision or create a purpose? And it's quite a like high level question, but how do they create a purpose that they can zoom in, like double down on, to be able to cut out all of the bad habits, all of the bad distractions, all of the degenerate activities? Because it's all good and well writing it down, right? But I've tried this multiple times, like writing out the ideal life, but always go back to the bad habits.
Yeah, well, to bounce off on your point there, I think that usually we get tempted by distractions when we're trying to escape from something, right? Trying to stimulate ourselves, to entertain ourselves. And so when we see that we actually are making progress towards a tangible real life goal, then we don't need to escape from anything because we're starting to live that dream. And so definitely when you start making progress in your goals, it's much easier to eliminate all the distractions because you're like, why would I take myself off of, something that's going well? Um,
And what would you say to the people who have started to take action, but are kind of discouraged because they're not seeing the results that they want, and so they fall into those bad habits, struggle to stay on the good path?
yeah, I would just say stick with it. The old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Growth happens gradually, then suddenly. The old Jack Butcher curve where it compounds. So yeah, it's definitely going to be hard in the beginning, but stick with it. It'll work out.
Yeah, man. I've actually got that Jack Butcher background on my laptop. Literally every time I open it. Honestly, it's my favorite visual because I think it really does like encapsulate a lot in one visual. Like a lot of people just stop before they actually make it big, and it's like you just need to keep going. Which is crazy to think like a lot of people could live their potential and fulfill their kind of like goals and visions and stuff, but they just don't go long enough. But you only like feel that, and you only realize that, or like for me personally, I'm only starting to understand and fully absorb what that actually means when I'm starting to get on that exponential path. So that's a really, really interesting observation. one question I had for you is, obviously you've been on Twitter for like a year and a half, 2 years now. It's around that, right? And you've been on obviously Instagram, YouTube, things like that. What is one of the coolest experiences or stories you have? Like people you met, opportunities you were able to get, um, places you were able to go to, businesses you were to start. Like, what is one or two things that just come top of mind for you?
Hmm. First thought that popped in my mind was seeing those comments on YouTube and seeing that I could actually inspire people. That was probably like the moment when I realized like I can actually have an impact on people. Doesn't matter what age I am, what race, where I'm from. It's like I can help people. Um, Second one was I got followed by Conor McGregor on Instagram. I was just randomly I was gonna help with my friend at like a cross country like event, and I was just scrolling Instagram and I saw this like blue check. I was like, hold up, who's that? I clicked it and it was like whatever 70 million followers. Like, there's no way. It's got to be fake. And I ran over to my brother. I was like, is this who I think it is? He's like, nah, it's got to be fake. And it was Connor. So cool.
That's a flex, bro. Why didn't you? Oh, are you still continuously building your Instagram, or are you mainly focused on Twitter? Like, what's that dynamic?
Actually, over the past week, I did some reflection, and I'm actually going to double down on Twitter. I think Instagram was stealing some of my focus. I want to focus on building the newsletter and building out the Twitter.
Interesting, man. That's really interesting. How do you see focus? Like, are you just on Twitter and the newsletter? That's literally your focus, as opposed to the other
Right.
stuff. Okay, that's
There's only so much you can really have your focus on, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's so easy to just copy and paste to like LinkedIn, but you can't really dominate both platforms at the same time really well. And I think I'm at the stage where um, I know what it takes to scale Twitter, and I just have to put in the reps and focus on that. I have my mission, my vision, and I kind of know what it takes to get there. So I just have to execute. And so I'm trying to push away all the distractions, all the things that I think were important, but actually didn't really drive the needle. And so I'm in the season of no.
crazy, man. That's crazy. What do you do with shiny objects?
Good question. I actually had a lot of trouble with shiny objects. Instagram, I started, a ton of different little Instagram pages, but I always stopped because I couldn't keep it consistently. So whenever I come across a shiny object now, I ask myself, is this something I can see myself doing for 5 years, for the next 5 years and beyond? Is this something that I truly will enjoy doing? Right? I have like an Instagram theme page. It's like 100K, but I can't keep posting consistently because it doesn't really align with what I'm trying to do. So anytime you come across a shiny object syndrome, just ask yourself, is this something that I would do for the next 5 years?
Interesting, interesting. I love that idea of like doubling down, because I've kind of like fallen into that trap. I mean, even in our agency, like we started off as a Twitter agency, and then we started getting a client who wanted LinkedIn as well. So we like Twitter and LinkedIn, and then we got a potential client who wants a YouTube script. So you
Mm-hmm.
got YouTube script, LinkedIn, Twitter, and it just keeps going on and on and on. I had a call with one of my friends, Nils, the other day, and he was saying how, because he was able to double down on AI implementation or like AI newsletters, he's kind of like trying to carve out a category of one. And I really just, the idea just really resonated with me. And it's something I've just been reflecting on a lot. It's just like, what are the things that I can just double down on? Because I was considering like jumping on LinkedIn as well. Obviously I'm doing this podcast now, and like you're making me rethink as well, man. There's a couple opinions there. Just like I just need to have a think about it, I think. But yeah, another question I have, like, what's one thing you know you should be working on, but you're not?
Mm. I think I could probably spin up this coaching program a little bit faster. My launch date is end of the summer, like early fall or even beyond. But I could probably do it this summer, like middle of the summer. And I have this thing where I don't really like, I like to build things out and prepare before I need them. So I've been building out the curriculums, building slides, building cheat sheets, exercises. But what I really should do is probably validate demand first, sell before you build, right? Get the people, like the students that you want to have, and then build it as they're going through it. But I'm the type of person who I just like to over prepare. And so I'm really fleshing out, like I've had a few calls with other people who've been in different coaching programs, and I've been asking them, what was the most valuable thing? What was the least valuable? What would you improve? And so I have a ton of just, sheets of paper, different data of how to build a good coaching program, when I probably should just, start and then learn.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. I think the way you're doing it is also fine, because you have a propensity, or you have a inclination to take action anyway. So I feel like you trust yourself to deliver on that. So it doesn't really matter if you prepare a little bit more now, because you might as well, man. Be better prepared than not. But yeah, no, I really like that. And I guess just like, what would you, or what's one thing you'd say to new creators or creators now who are wanting to build an income online?
It's a lot easier to steer a moving ship than a stationary one. Just send your first tweet, take that first action, make a lot of commotion, make a lot of noise, and then filter out the ones that you want to double down on, right? You like, a lot of people try to like hone their positioning when they have like 300 followers. It's not a one-time decision. It's an evolution, and you're able to get real-time feedback when you have an audience. So my advice to people like under 5,000 followers, get to 5,000 followers, because while it is just an external number, there's also real people behind those numbers that you can have conversations with, that you can validate different ideas and get feedback on different things. So get started. That's my piece of advice.
How do you validate ideas?
Yeah. So the way I did it is hopped on free calls. Like now I have paid calls, but just hop on calls with your followers. Like talk to them, get to know them, get to know their problems, get to know their dreams and aspirations. This podcast is a great example. Get to know the people in your industry, the people who are doing similar things. And that's kind of like the best way to understand your customer is to talk with your customer, so.
Yeah, man. I love that. I love that. I just want to backtrack a little bit on one thing you said. Virality versus quality content. What's the difference?
I think they can overlap. I definitely think viral content can be quality, and quality content can be not, there's an overlap. The difference between viral content and quality content in my mind is viral content is for the sake of engagement. Quality content is for the sake of educating and entertaining or inspiring people. So it's the intention behind the content. That's the difference.
I love that, man. And one final question then. So what is a challenge you'd give to the audience?
Find a question that you're curious about and start writing about it.
That's it. Jay Yang, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you, brother. Take care, guys. Mate.